um, volunteering his time for us. And as I mentioned during our announcement, most people growing up and living in Turkey um, do not hear about the Armenian conflict that's happening mostly in the United States. So that is why I thought it is very important that we all educate ourselves so that we can educate our children, or in any social gathering or professional environment, if we're ever exposed to this conflict, we should all know what has happened and what needs to be said. And Ergun Bey, being one of the best researchers on this topic, I listened to him back in like earlier May at the ATAI conference, and I also did not know all of the cases that has happened. So I thought it was very important. So Ergun Bey is a chemical engineer, and he's I believe the founder and the president of Integrated Polymer Industries. And he has dedicated himself to this cause for probably more than 40 years. And in the past few years, he has started a YouTube channel in order to inform everyone about this topic. And right now, he has a presentation for us for about 20 minutes. We're going to listen to him, and then we can all ask questions. Thank you, Ergun Bey. Please, the mic is yours.
Well, thank you very much for organizing this event, and thank you all for joining us. The Armenian lobby would love to start history in 1915, totally ignoring what has happened before that. And tonight, hopefully, I will be able to show you what really happened before that. We're going to look at the hinterland of Turkish history, which is full of mortality, migration, and then renewal. That's who we are. Let me take you back to 1912, to the city of Salonika, which is Thessaloniki in Greece today. It was part of Ottoman Empire then. Visualize this train station. It's the first Balkan War is raging, turmoil and mayhem all around. A hastily scribbled note pinned on the baby's tiny clothes reads this: Akif's son Ratip, born 1911, Kirlikova. That's it. That's all the information we have on this baby. The baby ends up at an overcrowded and understaffed orphanage in Istanbul because that's the only facility available at the time, where he is cared for throughout his childhood and adolescence. That helpless, lonely baby on the train was my father, a very calm, silent, and gentle man. And here's how he looked at the age of 27 in this 1988 photo. He graduated from forestry engineering department with a master's degree from the Istanbul University on October 10th, 1938. And if you consider that he's one lonely person who grew up without knowing any of his parents or friends or neighbors or anything, for a survivor, this is not a bad success rate. In 1934, a new law is passed. It's called the last name law. Before that, people went around by saying, I'm Mehmet son Ahmet or Hassan son Hussein, whatever. So then obviously people line up and the clerk asks my father, what last name do you want, sir? He says, I don't know. He says, well, ask your elders. He says, they don't exist. Well, ask your friends and neighbors. Well, they don't exist either. How about neighboring villagers? Sorry, they're all gone. Where the hell have you come from, son? And my father responds, from the village of Kirlikova. And the clerk thinks for a while. He says, how about calling you Kirlikovali, a person from Kirlikova? Maybe somebody will recognize that name and step forward with information about your family. What do you say? He says, okay. Well, this is the last we heard about that, and this is the family history now. This is how we got our last name. Now meet Justin McCarthy, an American professor of history at the University of Louisville. His lifelong expertise on Turkish history is remarkable. He writes this book called Death and Exile, as you can see the book here. While I was reading that book, I was shocked by an unexpected surprise in his book on page 140. There it was, Kirlikova, my village, was listed as one of the villages as having been the scene of murders, most of which took place shortly after the Bulgarian occupation. British ambassador to Sofia goes to the area on horseback to see the devastation for himself. He files a report to London saying the news of Turks being massacred in Drama, Çatalca, Doksat, and Kirlikova is true. Then fast forward, Ratip, my father, marries my mother, Münire, after graduation, of course. And Münire is the Turkish-born, but her family story of mortality and forced migration is just as dramatic as my dad's. My mother's family barely escaped almost certain death at the hands of Serbian paramilitaries during the infamous Skopje massacres in today's Macedonia, with only what they could carry with them. They are the only people I know who consider themselves lucky because only half the family was killed. My father never talked about his childhood, adulthood, or anyhood. He just kept working to feed us, clothe us, and educate us. Not once have I heard a lament spilling from his lips, not even once. Now, here is Ratip's escape route from Selanik to Istanbul on the last scheduled train from Selanik to Istanbul. And that train was full of hundreds of boys and girls, age under 15, all the way from 1 to 15. Moms and dads are gone. They're not there, either hiding or killed or somewhere. And these people, they all end up in that orphanage. This is my grandmother's escape route from Skopje, Macedonia. This is Güler's parents' escape route to Turkey. That's my brother Cenk's wife, Güler. Her parents escaped from Crete, the island of Crete. And Elvira's parents' escape route to Turkey, that's my other brother, Oktay's wife. That's from Crimea. They also escaped with just the clothes on their backs. Here are all the Kirlikovalis. There are 6 boys and 2 girls. I'm the youngest of the boys. They're, of course, married. They have grandchildren now. And here are the escape routes on the little map to the right. And here is the escape route of all the Turkic and Turkish people trying to save their lives by running from where they were born and raised due to violence wherever they were, Balkan War or the First World War. And the last names in Turkey tells you all of these stories. I'm sure you heard these last names: Bağdatlı, Filibeli, Kırcalı, Kerküklü, Hankentli, Musullu, Kıbrıslı, Rodoslu, Kırımlı, Rodoplu, Taşkentli. Everybody's from somewhere. Okay, this is the real story of our country. And here is a historical map. A picture ignored in the West to this very day. Forced displacement of 5 million Muslims and 1.9 million Christians from 1770 to 1923. Credit here goes to Professor Justin McCarthy. He compiled this map for us. And as you can see, the West only talks about the blue arrows, but totally ignore the white arrows. If there is one thing, my friends, that you remember from tonight's talk, please remember this map. Look at this map. In the West, you always hear about Armenian suffering. Turkish suffering is totally ignored. Muslim refugees, mostly Turks, but there are others too. There are Bosnians and Albanians and Crimeans, all kinds of people with just the clothes on their backs, not even shoes, no shoes, and just in the brutal Balkan winters, they tried to walk towards Turkey to save their lives. And nobody talks about these people. Here they came by oxen carts. They came by trains if they could. They came by ships. All had tragic stories of human suffering behind them. If their stories went untold, that does not mean that the unspeakable atrocities they endured did not happen. But the West ignores all of this pain and suffering. From frying pan into fire, Muslim Turkish refugees' tragic fate. Turkish suffering and loss are rendered all the more tragic and ironic as these hapless masses fleeing death and destruction in their places of origin were met with yet another cycle of violence and terror in their new places in Anatolia, where they were resettled, this time perpetrated by Anatolian Christians, namely Ottoman Armenians in the east from 1914 to 1921, and Ottoman Greeks in the west, 1919 to 1922. Casualty number tell the entire story, compiled by Justin McCarthy again in his book, Death in Exile, page 339. More than 5 million Muslim deaths, more than 5 million Muslim refugees. They just migrated towards Turkey in 100 years from 1821 to 1922. Question: why does one hardly ever hear about Turkish casualties? Why? 1.2 million Muslim deaths plus 0.9 million Muslim refugees in eastern Anatolia alone, where Armenian revolts, terrorism, and treason played a role in this tragedy. And 518,000 of these casualties are traced by the Turkish Institute of History to atrocities committed by Armenians. Is this silence because if one talks about them, then one can no longer justify a charge of Armenian genocide? Is that why they're thinking if we talk about Turkish casualties and suffering, then people will not believe our genocide story? Selective morality at the heart of genocide claims, and selective morality borders on immorality. Ignoring Turkish suffering and Armenian hate crimes are crucial to making the case for Armenian genocide. No Turks escaped suffering and loss during the 5 consecutive wars between 1911 and 1922. Go to Turkey today, stop the first Turk you meet, ask about his or her family history, and hear those heart-wrenching stories of atrocities, forced marches, death, hope, and renewal. But Turks do not wish to talk about them at all, as the stories are too painful. Dignified silence is how Turks deal with pain. It's the culture. It is unacceptable to sob, beg, scream, or otherwise look weak and helpless, even if you really are weak and helpless. Turks made their choice on the side of forgive and forget, build a new life, and forge a new nation, wrought with endurance and hope. This dignified Turkish silence is not to be misinterpreted as admission of guilt for the baseless genocide charges, as some are inclined to do. Turkey in 1910s and 1920s, one of the biggest melting pots in the world. It was just like the United States. You had people from all kinds of the area, in the tricontinental area, Asia, Europe, Middle East, North Africa, everywhere. It was the melting pot of broken families, mostly where about 100 languages and dialects were spoken by tormented, poor, hungry, and frightened masses, which are totally ignored by Western charities. The Turkish refugees had nothing left in them except hope. Hope for a better future, peaceful life, and liberty. They did not want to burden their children with the unspeakable atrocities endured. That's why my father never spoke to me about his pain and suffering. Their children only casually overheard about them or did not hear about them at all. Who can blame them for choosing hope over hate as their way forward? Peace at home, peace in the world. Atatürk, the visionary and reformist founder of modern Turkey, summarized his vision for Turkey in these immortal words. Turks believe that hope pays, but hate drains. Today, Turkey is one of the 20th largest economies in the world. Turkey opened its archives to the global research community 35 years ago. And here's, you see a picture of that place. It's called Kağıthane in Istanbul. They built this campus, $100 million campus, and they consolidated all the archives in there. Now, Armenians are still keeping their archives under wraps. Why? Because you can see this map. That's why. Armenian churches in Istanbul, Echmiadzin, Beirut, Jerusalem, Boston, Glendale, Venice, and elsewhere, they're all closed to research. Armenian political parties like Dashnaks, Hanchaks, Armenakan, and others, their files and archives are also closed to researchers unless you agree to their claims. Armenian state in Yerevan, of course, is also closed to researchers like me. And here you see a map of where Armenian gangs have attacked government installations and civilians. You can see these maps, my friends, are drawn by Armenians. I want to stress that. These maps are drawn by Armenians with a pride. This book is not for sale. You only get a copy of this book if you believe them and donate to their cause. Under a fake name, I donated some money and they sent me this as a thank you note. And it's the biggest confession of history. They tell the world why they're guilty. So what are Armenians hiding in those archives? Why are they rejecting the Turkish offer to establish a joint commission of historians to study all archives? Look at the pictures. You can see all these gangs. Anatolia was dotted with thousands of these gangs. Why did they run away from the table at VAT, that's Viennese Armenian Turkish platform, in 2005, intimidated by the second round of exchanging documents? Maybe this kind of things Armenians are hiding. Look at this. Armenians killed 120,000 Turks in 1914 alone. This is from a British source. Note the title on the right. History belies Armenian claims of genocide. And those areas highlighted, they tell you that Armenians killed 120,000 Turks in 1914 alone. We're not even in 1915 yet, and no one talks about these. Comparison of experiences with terrorism. Now compare the September 11 with December 1914 that I just mentioned. Location, one is US, the other one is Ottoman Empire. Perpetrator, Al-Qaeda on one side, Armenians on the other. Number of victims, in America it's 3,000. In Turkey, 120,000. 40 more thousand deaths to come 4 months later. Reaction: within a month, United States declared global war on terrorism. Within a month. Ottoman reaction, Ottoman reaction, within 5 months. They waited 5 months before they could move any of them. And what was the reaction type? Terraset, which means temporary resettlement of most but not all Armenians. Help provided, returns allowed. So it's temporary resettlement, or terraset for short. That's a term that's my gift to the English language, because every other word would be doing injustice to the facts. Deportation is wrong because deportation implies another country, whereas some Armenians were moved from one part of the empire to the other inside the country. So if you say terraset, you would be right. Duration still rages after 9 years. Actually, that 9 years should be not corrected to 20 years, because I made this chart a few years ago. Whereas in the Ottoman terraset, it ended within less than 2 years. It was like a year and a half or less. Cost: in the US, 4,000 GIs killed in action, 1 million Muslim civilians dead, $1 trillion or more spent. Ottoman losses: they say 600,000 Armenians. Turkish records show 300,000 Armenians, and 1.2 million Muslims dead, and cost unknown. And common threads: few of the people talk about Muslim suffering in the US experience. Even fewer seem to care. They don't care. 1 million Muslim civilians were killed in Iraq. Who cares? Whereas no one seems to care, no one seems to know about Muslim suffering, mostly Turkish suffering, in the Ottoman case. Again, in both cases, we see a religious discrimination. A question of fairness and honesty begging to be asked. How can 3,000 victims justify a global war in 2001, but 160,000 victims cannot a local terraset in 1915? This is at the crux of this whole evening. How can 3,000 victims justify a global war, but 160,000 victims cannot justify one? They cannot even justify a local temporary resettlement in 1915. How come one is considered a war, but the other a genocide? Hint: read the definition of bias. We are told April 24 is the beginning of genocide, but is it? What really happened that day? 237 Armenian terror suspects arrested by the Home Security Forces, sent to central Anatolia, places like Çorum, Çankırı, subjected to house arrest, not even prison. Detainees could roam around freely during the day, even could conduct business, and some did. But they had to check into a designated house at night. So, not exactly a genocide, is it? Now consider Guantanamo in Cuba. That's how the American government replied to terrorism. All Armenian detainees were returned in the end, except 2. But no, they're still in Guantanamo today. Those 2 were indeed murdered, but on unrelated trade disputes. No matter how one slices it, none of this sounds like genocide. At best, 24th of April could be called the beginning of Ottoman Guantanamo, nothing to do with genocide. Friends, if somebody told me, I have been researching the subject for nearly 50 years now. I have a collection of books reaching thousands. Some of them are rare books, and read most of them. If somebody said to me today, tonight, right now, just pick one item that would disprove Armenian genocide, it would be this photo. Look at this photo carefully. Do they look like starving Armenians to you? Do these unarmed innocent Armenians, do they look like unarmed innocent Armenians to you? By the way, this is from an Armenian military academy in Bulgaria that was established in 1906, 9 years before 1915. How come they don't mention this? I'll share all of this with you, and you can actually use it any way you like. And look at all these gangs. How about these Armenian revolutionaries? Do they look like helpless masses to you, as claimed? And how about the epic battles Armenians confess they bought? The name of the book that they sent me as a thank you, friends, is called Epic Battles. Now, wait a minute. Didn't the Turks slaughter you? How can you wage epic battles if you were slaughtered? It's one or the other. Would any sovereign nation tolerate the presence of a vast armed network challenging their authority and sovereignty on their own soil? Would America allow that? How do these arms transporting routes Armenians used covertly to betray their own government? How does that fit into the genocide equation? How about these routes used for transportation of ammunition? And these Armenian gun shops located all over the map, how do they go with that persistent unarmed Armenian myth? This information is from Armenian sources. Look at all these, acquisition and distribution. And these are the locations of the party lines, like Armenian Federation offices. As you can see, they're all over. And these are the guerrilla activities. That's where they attack the Turkish forces or civilians. And here are the people who did this. And this really hurts me. I'm so sad to look at this. These are religious people. These are clergy. They're all gun-toting, killing clergy. They are proudly shown here. Some of them actually killed people. Look at all these people. Nobody talks about them. And these photos are from that same book. Look at all these. Look at all these. In 1985, 69 scholars signed this statement, which was published in New York Times and Washington Post. It's a wonderful tool that you should use. I will also share this with you so you can use it anytime you want. You can read it at your own time because it's a wonderful, wonderful text. Anti-Turkish bias is still strong in the Armenian diaspora today. This is what they say about us in their books. I won't go into them. It's full of insults. And Armenian terrorism. Again, I will share all of this with you. You can look at it. For an extensive chronological list of Armenian terrorism from 1862 to 1918, go to Esat Uras's book, The Armenians in History and the Armenian Question. And from 1918 forward to this time, then you can go to this blogspot, Armenians-1915.blogspot. I will share all of this information with you. You don't have to worry about taking notes. And these are some of the wonderful books that you should really take a look. I have hundreds of them, obviously, but I'm only giving you some. This is one of the best books in my book. This is written by Professor Turkaya Atov. This book, ladies and gentlemen, is called Armenian Falsifications. Imagine a book written on falsifications alone and how they were refuted and exposed. We thank Professor Atov for writing this book. Here are some Armenian falsifications. They would take an Atatürk photo with little dogs and then turn it into, and replace the dogs with severed heads and show Atatürk as a tyrant. And to the next photo is supposedly an Ottoman clerk making fun of starving children in Africa. All Armenian lies, all in that book. Armenian falsifications, Hitler quote. According to them, Hitler said, who remembers these Armenians now? Let's go and kill all the Poles. Nobody will remember. Whereas we proved it beyond the shadow of doubt that that was a fabrication. And 3 pillars of Armenian genocide claims, all 3 are crumbling. I will do this and then stop and ask, leave room for questions and answers. But this is one of the best slides, in my opinion. Again, this is from a history professor. He says that there are 3 pillars of Armenian genocide claims. One is that 1919 to 1920 court-martials in Istanbul. These tribunals lacked the basic requirements of due process. There were no witnesses heard, no cross-examinations allowed. Verdict rested on documents and testimonials only. And this kangaroo court passed a verdict saying all the Ittihat ve Terakki, or Union and Progress Party officials were guilty of genocide. And the second one was, the 3 pillars. I already did the Turkish court martial. The second one was the role of the Teşkilat-ı Mahsusa. And let me see if I have it. Okay. Again, you don't have to read it because you're going to have this. But basically, Armenians are saying that Turks created this evil organization and emptied the prisons of killers and murderers and let them kill any Armenian they can find. Now we know that's also a lie, and we have facts and figures and evidence proving that. In fact, this was proven by another American who wrote a book on Teşkilat-ı Mahsusa. I have the book. And the name of the professor is Louis. In conclusion, Louis states that the 3 pillars failed to substantiate the charge. And about 14 years ago, I drew this cartoon. I'm not a good cartoonist, but I wanted to do this. You can see a fantastic skyscraper, a tower built, but on very shaky grounds. So that tower would be Armenian genocide. But look at the foundations. One is the 1920 kangaroo courts. The other one is the role of Teşkilat-ı Mahsusa. And third one is memoirs of Naim Bey, which is also a total fabrication. Now, there are 40 more slides. I will share them all with you. But if I continue, you won't have any questions to reflect. So I think I should stop here. What do you think?
Yes, Ergun Bey, thank you. These are very valuable research findings, and I'm sure everybody will be interested in reading. But my first question is going to be, what are some of the things Armenians are doing today, and why should we all be aware and educate ourselves?
That's an excellent question. In 1980s, they tried to put the Armenian claims of genocide into high school books in California. We fought hard, very hard. We even established groups, went up to Sacramento and pleaded our case. There were 20, we put together 20 speakers. I was one of them. And each one was given 2 minutes, and we rehearsed our roles. Each speaker talked about a different issue. Basically, we were against it, but we lost. It passed. Then it grew. Then they wanted to declare April 24th Genocide Remembrance Day, where an official day of mourning, and all the schools should be closed. Again, we fought hard, but we lost. Now, a few other states are doing the same thing, and it doesn't stop there. It goes on and on and on. The next step is they want to put this the baseless Armenian genocide claims in history books all over the country. And Senator Adam Schiff is leading this effort, and he's asking the U.S. government, obviously through a law, to declare this settled history and put it into the history books. What that means is that our children tomorrow will be labeled children of murderers, genocide committers. And it doesn't even stop there. California has one of the largest investment funds by retired officers and union people, and obviously some of the monies were invested in Turkey. Turkey T-bills were very profitable, so they invested there. It was good for Turkey. It was good for California. But the Armenians lobbied hard, and they canceled that business deal. And then a few years ago, a group of Turkish businessmen came to California. They wanted to talk to the governor, and governor was out of town in China someplace, and vice governor wanted to meet us. As soon as the Armenians got a wind of it, they again lobbied hard, and they canceled that business meeting. You see, people, you see, my friends, if you stay quiet today, tomorrow, or maybe the day after that, they will catch you. They will. This way or that way. One way, they will catch you, your son, your grandson. You cannot escape it. You have to fight back. If you don't fight back, it's too late. We have to fight back. I wrote a big, long letter to Senator Adam Schiff. We started a campaign. By the way, I will share that letter with you also, so you can use any piece there you want. I also have a lot of references there that you can use. I'm sure you know about the 72 half-hour TV programs that I did on various aspects of Turkish-Armenian conflict. But going back to Senator Schiff, we started the campaign. My friends, this is how pathetic sometimes we can be. There are 500,000 people coast to coast from Atlantic to Pacific. And this message campaign went to most of them, and only about 500 responded. That's it, 500 out of 500,000. That's 1%. And so if we don't do anything, then we have no reason to cry. That's it. We have to, and we can do something. We can, even if you just send one line saying, Senator, I disagree with you. That's it. That means something. If there are hundreds, if there are thousands going, then the senator will step back. But we're doing nothing. So to go back to your question, it is very important. You say, why should we do anything? We should do anything. We should do a lot, because if we don't, tomorrow you'll find that as a Turk or Turkish American, it will be very, very, very difficult to live in the United States without shame.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, I have several questions for you, but I'd like to have some of our attendants ask.
Eileen, I have a question. Hi, this
Yes.
is Benur.
Hi,
Thank you so much for the wonderful information. When I was walking to the Philadelphia Art Museum, now Philadelphia Art Museum is doing a huge Armenian park right in front of across from the Art Museum. So there is under construction. I don't know what we could do, if we should do something. That's
Yes,
my question.
It's an excellent question. And this alone shows me how our community really has no idea of what was done. Back in 1982, same thing happened in Washington. The Jewish lobby established a museum called the Museum of Holocaust. And Armenians wanted to get in there and have at least a part of it exhibit Armenian claims. And there was this guy, Armenian businessman called Mumjian from Michigan. He donated $1 million so that the Museum of Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., could use one of the branches and then exhibit Armenian claims there. Then what we did was, first of all, we as ATAA, that's the assembly, we launched a campaign saying, and Armenians would say to the Jews, you should do this because Hitler got the idea of killing Jews from genocide, from killing Armenians during the First World War. We proved that was wrong. Armenians quoted a statement saying that, who now remembers the Armenians? And we were able to show that was a fabrication. And how did we do that? Well, we got the Jewish lobby behind us. At the time, we were good friends. And now, because of last few years, we're no longer good friends. We're still friends, but they're distanced now. That's why Biden was able to declare on the 24th of April 3 years ago that Armenian claims were genocide. Anyway, Jewish lobby helped us out. We brought in some Jewish Turks from Istanbul, some businessmen who came to the Congress and answered questions. There were hearings. We created a big splash about this, and in the end, it was like 2, 3, 4 year war. In the end, the Armenian exhibit was not placed there, but accordingly, I haven't seen it, but they say there's one little tiny area that still mentions it. I went to that museum 3 times since then. I couldn't see it. So, okay. My answer is, here's an example. We have to repeat the same thing. First, we find out who is building it, who's behind it. There's usually either a state or a city or a party. You have to find out who these people are, how many people are in the board of directors, board of trustees. You have their names, you have their emails, and you as a Turkish American community create a fantastic letter to them why they should not be involved. And that should be a campaign, ongoing campaign, 1, 2, 3 years campaign. And we can bring in professors, we can create panels, we can create a big stink. It will help you all the way. But somebody has to start the fire over there. Somebody has to do it. Maybe you establish a group like 2, 3 people. You say, this is my fight. This is the fight of my life. If I did one thing in this life, it will be this. I will create a better environment for my children and for my grandchildren. I'm going to fight this damn thing. If you do that, 2 or 3 of you, 5 of you, 10 of you, or maybe the whole association, and then we can easily get ATA involved, and we can easily, now we're much better than what we are 40 years ago. Now we have social media, we have Facebook, we have WhatsApp, emails, or we can mobilize the entire community in no time. We can go behind this. We can talk to like Mehmet Öz, and he's from Pennsylvania, and he can come out and say, hey guys, wait a minute, this is wrong, terribly wrong. We can do a lot of things, but if no one does nothing, nothing will happen. We'll lose. We don't want to be losers. So I think the first bullet has to come from Philadelphia, wherever the museum is, and the community. If you want, you can even establish an NGO there. You can say like Philadelphians Against Hate. There's a group. That's it. That's you. That's you, a bunch of you. And then in that group, you present your case. You can start a website. We can help you out with all that. And then in the website, you could say who we are, what we want, why we're against this, put all the information. We have to act like 21st century intelligent Americans, not silent, nameless, faceless masses. That's my answer.
Ergun, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome to Philadelphia. Thanks for, I mean, through Zoom, obviously, but thanks for this wonderful presentation. My comment or rather question, I should say, I think if I may ask you, please, to talk a little bit more about ATAA, because ATAA, obviously, even though we're generally unsuccessful, but we have also been very successful by stopping, for example, this passing through the Congress up until a few years ago. We stopped
Yes.
almost 3 decades. It's very successful.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one problem that we always talk about at the ATAA, as you know, just like any place else, ATAA is not well known in this region. No surprise. And there is always this disconnect between ATAA and these local organizations and members of these local organizations. Could you please kind of talk a little bit about what ATAA has done in the last 30, 40 years from its start? In fact, 1979, the reason for this organization was built by, main reason was the Armenian issue. And I think there has some success there we can be at least a little bit proud of. We weren't totally ineffective. If you could kind of summarize what ATAA has done and what the local organizations and people who live in these local areas do for ATAA and vice versa.
Thank you, Ibrahim. It would be my pleasure to do so. To do that, I have to introduce you to a grand gentleman, a scholar plus a diplomat, Shukri Elekdağ, Ambassador Shukri Elekdağ. He was assigned to the United States in 1979. And what he saw when he looked at the Turkish community, what he saw was just pathetic. I mean, there were hardly anything going on anywhere. It was just a bunch of picnics and maybe a ball, that's it. And so he said to the local groups, why don't you get together and establish a better umbrella and get everybody under it and create a very powerful Turkish-American presence. And Maryland American Turkish Association, MATA, and Washington, D.C. organization called ATA DC, they got together and then they opened it to vote, and they all agreed, and they created ATAA, which stands for the Assembly of Turkish American Associations. That would be 1979. The first thing they did was they fought back the Greek lobby, because at the time, as you know, Turkey conducted a peace operation in Cyprus to save the Turkish Cypriots from ethnic cleansing at the hands of Greeks. And this didn't sit well with the Greek Americans here. And they established embargo on Turkey. And they were passing resolution after resolution to Turkey. So the first thing ATA did was fight the Greek lobby in the Congress, and they wrote a lot of good letters, and they stopped a few of the resolutions. The first success was that. Then, obviously, enter the Armenian terrorism, and diplomats killed one after the other. And at that time, obviously, what was happening was the ATAA and its component associations, coast to coast, were writing letters to Congress, the Congress people. Obviously, Arizonans would write to Arizona Congress people, and Massachusetts people would write to Massachusetts Congress people. All of this was organized by ATAA. All of a sudden, politicians started realizing, hey, you know what? There's a Turkish-American community here. So that was another success there. Then came in 1982, the Holocaust Museum fight in Washington, D.C. Armenians wanted their history exhibited, their claim, not history, but their claims exhibited as settled history in a Jewish museum. And we fought hard to stop it. It took us 2-3 years, but we stopped it. And there's a wonderful book, by the way, written by a Jewish person on the Holocaust Museum experience. It's called Preserving Memory. And I have that book, I read it. And basically, there were one guy in the museum who was the flag carrier for the Armenian lobbyists, whereas all the other Jews, they couldn't care less about the Armenians. In fact, one of the guys in one of the members of the museum establishing committee He was a survivor with death camp number printed on his forearm, right forearm, the number 236, whatever, and to prove that he was a survivor. He got up so upset. It's all in the book. He said to this person, he says, "Never again you mention Armenians in my presence." And he stormed out of the meeting room. My friends, if you don't know these things, you cannot fight. You cannot fight without information. ATAA was the flag carrier here, and we stopped that dead in its tracks. Then comes 1985, where ATAA, with the help from Shukri Elekta, of course, created that magnificent statement by historians. 69 historians basically wrote to the Congress to stop a resolution, basically said no signatory of this statement minimizes or wishes to minimize the Armenian suffering. But then we also want to draw your attention to Armenian complicity and the Turkish suffering as a result of that. We Americans are, fair people. We don't decide on somebody's faith without listening to that somebody, and we don't decide on anything without hearing both sides of the story. In this case, only one side is heard. Congress heard us loud and clear. That House Resolution 212 never passed. That was a huge success by ATAA again. And there were several others like that. Ibrahim, it would take too long to go through. I'm in 1985 now. If I come to 2025, it's going to be all night. But basically, ATAA does your fighting. And I'm not talking about you when I say you, okay, to all the present people are accepted. But I'm talking about the 500,000 people. You guys don't care. You look away, somebody else is doing your fight. You don't even write a check for them, $5, $10. You don't even pick up at one portion of this fight. Write a little letter. Go to your town meeting, talk to your congressman, say, look, I'm a Turkish American living in this area. I like you. I voted for you. Here's my check for $20. But you know what? I really don't like you passing the Armenian claims as settled history because you don't know my story. Or you can just say, I disagree with you on that signature you put on the Armenian claims. You do nothing of that. But you know all the singers in Turkey, all the soccer players in Turkey. You go to Turkey 5 times a year, but yet this concerns your children, your grandchildren, and you do nothing for them. Nothing. The least you can do is become a member of your local organization and write a check for $20 so that they can continue. And then if you're an expert in something, come and talk to the members and enrich that group, and then be part of ATAA. Together, we can really shake the mountains. We can do a lot. In America, one can make a difference. All of us together, we can really move mountains. So to summarize my answer to you, Ibrahim Jim, ATAA is little known because unfortunately our people they're indifferent and they have apathy. They don't want to know. I don't know what to do. For example, I say in California, our people have buttons in different parts of their body. One button is on the shoulder. When the singer comes in, you have 10,000 people attending. Another one is sports. You push that button, and when a Turkish team comes here, again, there are 10,000 people coming. Well, this is just as important. It concerns your future, your children's future, your grandchildren's future. Will you not do anything? Will you continue doing nothing? I don't know what else I can say, Ibrahim, but this is where I stop my answer.
Hey, thank you.
Yes, Ergun, that's very, very important for everyone to understand. But I have yet another question for you. Unfortunately, when I talk to some of my friends, I hear from them that they're kind of like not even convinced about the Armenian history, and they're saying, well, maybe there was a genocide, and why are we fighting? How do we know? And you probably hear those comments
Yes.
as well.
Okay. Well, that's an excellent question, and I want to tackle that with reason and with facts and figures. First of all, our people, I will be brutally honest, they don't read. Our people, they don't write. But Armenians write a lot. The Armenians read a lot. And all of a sudden, in all the papers, everywhere, you hear their story. They shame you into believing them. Let me give you one example. In 1915, 24th of April, they say it's the start of genocide. But if you look at that year, Ottoman Empire is trying to survive. On the east, Tsarist Russia came all the way to Erzurum, and Van is slaughtered. I just gave you the numbers: 120,000 until 1914, another 40,000 in May, April, May 15. Totally, 160,000 killed, and Armenians are in the Russian army. And on the west, we have the Dardanelles, the mightiest armies and navies of the world: Britain, France, Anzacs, all kinds of soldiers. They're there trying to pass through the Marmara and then knock out Istanbul, so that they could give all the help they can to Tsarist Russia, so they can envelope Germany and then win the war quickly. So if you look at the Ottoman Empire, they're trying to survive. Imagine this is your country. Your country is between the Russians on the east and the Britain, France, or the Western powers on the west. They had the mightiest armies. They're squeezing in. They're killing everybody. And during such a time, some of the Armenians, what did they do? Not all of them. The ones in Istanbul didn't do this, but the ones in the east. What did they do? They joined the invading enemy armies. Friends, the term treason is not powerful enough to describe this. This is the worst treason in the world. It's the supreme treason. That's the word I use, supreme treason. Why don't anybody put the Armenians' feet to fire on this? Now, that alone is worth every movement that the Ottomans had to make. And so that's number one. Number two, the clock did not start in 1915. According to Armenian historian Nalbandian, who wrote a book, the lady wrote a book that was published in 1967. He was a professor at UCLA. And I have that book, and I quote that book intensely. And she claims, actually with facts and figures, that the first Armenian rebellion happened in 1862 in Zeytun. And then after that, there are hundreds of rebellions, armed rebellions. And then they have established in 1870s and 1880s a lot of Armenian gangs, violent groups. They were bent on saving, so-called, their fatherland from the Turkish yoke. And they did all these things. So Turkish-Armenian situation, the genocide claims cannot be understood without looking at the hinterland of 1915, without looking at Armenian rebellions, Armenian treason, Armenian terrorism, and Armenian territorial demands. They would demand half the Ottoman Empire. If you don't know these things, and you don't read anything, you don't know what the ATA is doing, then of course you can say, well, maybe it happened, because that's how hollow you are. To me, that's how. I have a lot of books, hundreds of books. In Turkey, in the last 40 years, at least 1,000 books are written on this. If you don't read these, if you don't understand these things, then of course easier to go along with what the Armenians say. So that's my answer to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And again, with Atatürk's philosophy, most Turkish people want to live in peace. And again, when I talk to our community in this area, everybody says like, well, we don't have anything against Armenians, so why do we need to do anything? But again, as I asked you earlier, our Turkish community don't know all the things that are happening in the United States. So what do you say, like, what is the difference between the Turkish Armenians of today and the American Armenians who are kind of stuck in that past?
This is also an excellent question, and I have quite a bit of experience with this question, about 50 years. Basically, Istanbul Armenians, you can be friends with them, you can eat, drink, have fun, laugh, sing along, everything. But when it comes to this issue, what they will say to you is, oh, well, our people suffered a lot. What's done is done. There's nothing you can do. They put you into a corner where saying, well, I'm sorry for my dad, for my grandfather, what they did to you. Whereas they're skillful at saying that. And if you're not well versed in this subject, you might go along with them because you love the guy, you love the gal, whatever. You're friends with him, you're laughing, you're eating dolma, you're eating baklava. Yeah, okay, yeah, our people probably did it. So you have to be careful because they're very, very subtle that way. Whereas the diaspora in United States, they don't have to hide anything. They as soon as they hear you're Turkish, they will ask you, what kind of name is that? Turkish? Boom, they're gone. Probably after insulting you, sometimes without insulting you, but they will just steer away from you and they'll be hostile at you. And so even my experience with it's so difficult what you're describing. For example, you know, Hrant Dink was killed in 2007. And all of a sudden, Hrant Dink became a prophet, a god. Oh, Hrant Dink said this, Hrant Dink said that. Whereas, of course, we're against killing anybody, and I think it was wrong, and I protest the guy who killed him. But if you look at what Hrant Dink said in one of them, he was having an interview, and during the interview, he said wonderful things. But at one time, the Turkish interviewer asked, he said, well, you're always talking about Armenian suffering and Turkish crimes. Didn't Armenians do anything? Now, Hrant's answer, okay, this is for the people who know their stuff. For the ignorant masses, it was accepted. He said, oh, well, yeah, I mean, you know, things like that happened, but that was in 1918, after the 1915 event, as a reaction. Wrong. I just told you, in 1914, 120,000 people killed. In 1915, 40,000 more, total 160,000. So Hrant Dink thinks nothing of it. And you guys swallow it, hook, line, and sinker. Why? Because you don't know. And the guy is so lovable, and he's killed, so he's a victim, so everything he says goes. Whereas if the interviewer had a little brain there, I call him as big as like a kernel of rice or lentil, he would have said, wait a minute, didn't you guys kill anyone in 1914? Before even the World War started, and then 1915? And how about the hundreds of rebellions, armed rebellions, victimizing Ottomans in the past 50 years prior to 1915? How come you don't mention those? How about the Dashnaks, the Hunchaks, the Armenian? How about the ones in Erzurum? Why don't you mention those things? But the guy doesn't know. How can he mention that? So he swallowed it, hook, line, and sinker. So I'm sorry if I sound a little bit upset about this whole thing, but I am really, because it's my people. They don't read, they don't write, then they accept lazily. I underline the word lazy because they don't bother to read what we write, read what we send, read the books, read what's available. They just it's easier to just accept what it is and go on. There's a very good saying in Turkish, bana dokunmayan yılan bin yaşasın. The snake that doesn't bite me can live 1,000 years. I don't care. But you know what? That snake will bite you, I guarantee you, in less than a year. Then you'll scream.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it stems from not knowing what the American Armenians are up to. I think that's why most of us are like, oh, this happened 100 years ago. Like, who cares, right? But unfortunately, it does affect our lives here very much.
It does. You go to a movie theater, you see a movie. In the movie, it totally different, unrelated situation. Let's say it's a murder movie, but the lovers are talking at a coffee house, and the guy says, "Well, barbarian Turks killed my grandmother, grandfather, whatever." And you swallow that because you didn't do anything in time. You go to a theater, same thing. You hear a song, there's an attack on you. You read a book, there's an attack on you. You read a newspaper article, there's an attack on you. People think there's nothing going on. There's a lot going on. If you read, in fact, I should send you a collection of what Armenians are saying and writing about us as we speak today. As we speak today, there are resolutions waiting in the Congress in various states, insulting and demonizing Turks altogether. But if you don't know about them, they don't bother you. So that's where we are.
So,
as you always say, Ergun, I think even the reason that we're having this Zoom meeting is because some of the younger people in the region has been exposed to these accusations, and they're bothered by it. I'm not sure. I know the composition of this particular meeting. I don't know how many students we have or young people we have or how many parents we have. I think to address the issue in a more practical way, what would you recommend to these younger people? Maybe there are some publications that they should read.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
I love this question. Well, thank you, Ibrahim. Look, my TV programs 39, 40, 41, episodes 39, 40, 41 are strictly created for boys and girls born in this country, growing up in this country, usually like junior high school students, even freshmen in college. They will benefit a lot from those three programs. And then I tried to wrap up. First of all, I created a new narrative, a new way to speak about all this in America, again, for our children, not for the grown-ups, but for our children. There are more terms. One term I already shared with you, it's called terraset, temporary resettlement. The other term is ethicide. Ethicide is a combination of the words ethics and side. Combined becomes ethicide, which means systematic extermination of ethics via mass deception for political gain. That's how simple it is. So our children could say, no, it's not ethicide. He could say, if the Armenian comes along and says, you guys committed genocide, our kid will be able to say, oh, no, it was genocide. It was not genocide. It was ethicide, and walk away. And the Armenian will say, what did you say? What's ethicide? And then he's going to grab the microphone and says, well, I'm glad you asked. Now let me explain. So I'm creating a platform for our kids, but they have to read those, watch those 39, 40, 41. Also, I formulated the entire Turkish-Armenian problem under the single letter T for Turk. Treason, terrorism, territorial demands, everything on the T. So our kids will be able to say the claim of genocide ignores the 15 T's of the Turkish-Armenian conflict. He doesn't have to remember even what those 15 are. They're all on the internet, and I'll share them with you anyway. And they're also, I think it's episode number 15. You can look it up. But I'll share all of this with you. All he has to say, or she has to say, is, oh, no, it was not genocide. It was ethicide, and walk away. And if they come back and say, well, Armenian genocide claims, it's very important to say claim, or you can say alleged Armenian genocide, ignores the 15 T's of the Turkish-Armenian conflict. Again, the Armenians say, What the hell are those? Well, I'm glad you asked. Give me the microphone now. Because our problem, my dear friend Ibrahim, is that they don't give us the microphone. They don't invite us to the panels. Our letters are ignored. They're not published. We're not invited to the panels. When we stand up to ask questions, they won't take our questions. That's why I created all of that. But our children have to really watch those episodes.
Yes, thank you. And unfortunately, even at the universities, as you might know, I work at Drexel. I hear some of the instructors use the so-called Armenian genocide as example cases, and our students didn't know how to respond, and that case is still open, and we're trying to reach to the instructor to explain what is happening.
You have all the information you want at your fingertips now.
Yes,
39,
thank you.
39, 40, 41.
Okay.
And then, of course, 15 T's. Just tell
Yes.
them, sir, what you're saying is it means ignoring the 15 T's of the Turkish-Armenian conflict. That's it. Then he will have scientific curiosity to say, what the hell are those? Because nobody wants to be wrong.
Yes. Any other questions?
Hi, Eileen. I wrote a question, or not maybe question, but a kind of comments from Mr. Ergun related. I don't want to bring the topic to the previous conversation, but I think it's important to. The question that I have is that, as you know, our national anthem starts with Korkma, but I believe that the reason of the Turkish Americans may not be taking an active role on the issue could be because they may be afraid of the power of the Armenian and Greek lobbies and their supporters. So maybe if they come up, or for example, Mr. Ergun Bey told us to go have an active role and be the person to do something and act, but maybe people are kind of afraid of to be the only person. So basically what my comments from Mr. Ergun is that, as a person who lived in California, where the Armenian lobbies are the strongest, as far as I know, how we can encourage our people so they can have a more active role. So how we can ease their afraid or kind of concerns, so they can be more active and won't hesitate to have a voice, to show their voice.
Yeah, very good question. First of all, let me tell you that you're right. In California, the concentration of Armenians is probably highest in the United States. Most of them are here. Anyway, they declared me the most hated Turk in America in 2 of their websites. You can do Google and find out and see it there. I even passed Justin McCarthy, which is a dubious honor, because the guy wrote like 30 books. And they hate me more than they hate him. You know why? Because I created a language for our youth to fight back. They hate that. Because before me, our youth couldn't do anything because they didn't know how to do it. But now they have a tool, they have a platform, they have new terms, they have new narrative. They can fight back. Now, that's one part of the answer. The other part is that if there was any problem of fear, korkma, then I should have known it, because I live in a place where we have hundreds of thousands of Armenians. Yes, you will hear slurs, insults, maybe even threats. I got tons of them, but they will all be to push you into silence. If you stay silent, then they're happy. But if you start writing and talking, they'll hate your guts. That's fine. But if hundreds, if thousands do the same thing, then they can't even do that. Now, you're lucky, because 50 years ago we had nothing. No books, no writings, no templates, no nothing. Now you have hundreds of books at your disposal. I wrote more than 5,000 letters in the past 50 years. most of them are in the internet. You can on the internet. You can read it, take parts of it. You can reshuffle it, present your own, or cut and paste. Do whatever you want. Everything is in front of you. But if you do a well-placed protest, you will be appreciated by Americans. The Americans will say, this man or this lady, she's got the right stuff because she was able to stand up to the brutal Armenians or whatever. So all of us really have to step forward. You can't keep hiding in the shades anymore, because they will come and find you. They will. Sooner or later, they will. In the food you eat, in the entertainment you seek, in travel, everywhere, in your son's education, daughter's education, they'll find you. So if I were you, I would go to that professor, for example. Sir, could we have a few moments, please? Yeah, sit down. He'll say, sir, Americans are fair people, correct? Yes, of course. Americans don't decide on something without hearing the other side of the story, right? Yes, of course. Well, sir, you don't know my side of the story, and yet you already label me a genocide committer. How is that possible? Now, once you lay the ground, then you open the gates, and then you can start supplying the information. But if you don't do anything, none of this will happen. So I think, Gözde, our people will have to eventually decide for themselves that, I'm sorry for these words, but if they want to stay as a coward, nameless, faceless character, or a respectable American citizen who stands up for what he or she brings, it's right. That's the decision that person has to make. I can't do any further.
Yes, thank you. I think we have Armand hand up.
Oh yeah, thank you. I got a question, but I know it's not that much related with that issue. So first of all, I'm a person from Turkey, but especially I'm from the city named called Kars, and I'm actually a product of Armenian genocide, or I don't know, like the problem, the alleged genocide. I mean, so like my mom, she's Armenian, but my father, he's Turkish, so I'm kind of product of this issue, and like I always grew up in the right middle of that issue, but the cases when I grew up, I didn't know that issue, because in my city we have lots of Armenian descendant people and Turkish people, and I grew up in a harmony and peaceful environment related with that issue. So when I came to the United States, or when I came to the high school, I started to learn about that problem. But like, I don't want to pick a side, but for example, if I want to pick a side, what is your suggestion to me, or like, do you have any like special recipe for me? Because I'm really I think it's kind of complicated for me. Like, I'm so confused. And can you suggest something to me?
Yeah, Armand, is that the right word, Armand or Armanj?
The Armanj.
Armanj.
You're right.
Armanj, excellent question, and I can help you.
Thank
First of all, Turks and Armenians lived in peaceful cohabitation in Anatolia for more than a millennium. That's 1,000 years. All of a sudden, all of this went bad in 19th century. You know why? Mostly because the American missionaries who came from Boston, from ABCFM, the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions, ABCFM. It's called board for short. These missionaries started coming to Anatolia in 1820s. By the time it was like 1860s, there were several hundred American schools. The system was a school and a hospital side by side. This system, and these would usually, more than likely, would train and educate Armenians, not Muslims. In fact, the first Muslim student accepted the Robert College, which was established in 1863. For 40 years, no Muslims. In 1903, 40 years later, the first set of Muslim students were allowed. So in the meantime, Armenians were taught to be proud Christians, and they don't deserve Turkish yoke, and that they have to present their own, they have to get their own country. Look at Bulgaria, look at Romania, look at Serbia, look at Greece. They did all that. How come you can't do it? All of this, slowly but surely, all of a sudden, you started in 1870s, you started having armed organizations like Protecting the Fatherland, that's not one of the names, and Armenian, another one. And then in Van, you had another group. And then in Tbilisi or Tiflis, you start, that's 1890, Armenian Revolutionary Federation of Tashnaks. In 1887, in Geneva, Switzerland, you had Hanchekian Party. All of these, in their party programs, they would say, they would promote armed resistance and use of arms and violence to achieve an Armenian homeland on Turkish soil. So that was the idea. But it got worse. Towards there were a lot of rebellions in the 60 years from 1862 to 1922. There were like several hundred of them. And of course, every time there would be an armed rebellion, Turks would retaliate. And no side is 100% clean or 100% wrong. But we have to realize that even during the, if we come to 1900s, again, a lot of rebellions, and in 1896, a bunch of Armenians attack and violently take hold of Turkish Central Bank, Ottoman Bank. Imagine 30, 40 people in America, taking over Fort Knox. Is that imaginable even? That's what they did. And then they established in 1905, they exploded a bomb to kill the Sultan. Imagine again, a group of ex-people without names, trying to explode a bomb to kill, assassinate a sitting president in America. It's unimaginable, unfathomable. That's what they did. And then they would start fighting back even more. By the time we got around 1914, 120,000 Muslims, mostly Turks, were killed by Armenians here, there, and everywhere. It's not all of them in one location, but all of these are recorded in British archives too. And then another 40,000 came in April of 1915. Now, at that time, I tried to explain to you that Ottoman Empire was fighting for its life because the country was pressed from both sides, from the east, Russians, from the west, Brits and French and so on. And some Armenians who are patriots did fight on the Turkish side against the invaders, but more than half of them really helped, actually joined invading enemy armies. I mean, treason is not enough to explain this situation. Instead of helping your government, you help the invaders. That's where we are. And if you put all of them together, if you look at the under T, 15 T's, that's where I would suggest you start, Armanch. And I will send all this information to you guys, and then you can share it along and make the best use of them. I have all the books. I can share them with you. Just let me know.
Thank you. We have one more person, and then it's almost 9:30. I think we have to end the recording at least because it has been 1.5 hours. Yes, Erol Bey, please.
Hi. So thanks for the presentation. It was so informative, and I want to say I'm a student at Rutgers, and I'm really interested in this topic as with politics and history. So I had a class meeting on Zoom, and I had a Turkish professor, and at the class there was an Armenian student, and everybody was greeting each other. And so professor said, like, where are you from? Because your name is similar to our region. And the Armenian student said, I'm Armenian, and the professor said, I'm sorry for what we have done to Armenian people. And he's Turkish, so I was a bit shocked. Like I didn't exactly know what to say during the class meeting. Like I didn't know, and I didn't say anything, and I just maybe wanted to talk with him, but I didn't like his attitude of like because he's a bit aggressive, like he's not too much talkable person. So and just I couldn't talk to him, but I put Enver Pasha, Cemal Pasha, Talat Pasha in my profile picture. And when he saw that, he started texting my mom saying he should remove this. And there is so much long of this story. So, and I don't exactly know how I can talk with these people. Like I know so many things about this issue, but I really don't. Really didn't know how to talk with him because it was a bit heated.
Yeah. If I were you, I would start with 15 keys of the Turkish-Armenian conflict. It's very easy to read, short and sweet, and then all of a sudden you're a mile ahead of the guy. Boom, boom, boom. Start with 15 because that will put you on the track to get more information. That's the most systematic way of learning this and quickly be a respectable person to discuss this issue.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ergun Bey. There's definitely lots and lots to learn about. And again, as Gözde put it, I think we all need to be a little bit more assertive in this
Yes.
topic. Everybody wants to live in peace, but we don't want to be pushed aside also. And we have to do this for our children.
Yes.
And so thank you very much. And we will share this recording with the rest of our members. And hopefully everybody will pay enough attention to this matter. And I will probably try to gather a group who are interested about this Armenian Heritage Walk that's supposed to be launched next April 2026. And I just did a little search online, and we can find names, and we can probably strategize and hopefully stop this, or at least tell our side of the story.
Excellent. And what I will do is I will send you, email you this PowerPoint presentation. You can share it with everybody. I will also share with you a few other items, like my letter to the Senator Adam Schiff, because it's like 3-4 page letter, but there's a lot of information in there, and it's a good starting point. And I will send you other stuff too, a bibliography, a list of bibliography, and so on.
Again, thank you very much for all
My
of
pleasure.
your time. And I think it's very important for everyone to know that you're doing this all on your own time and voluntarily.
Yes.
So that is the amount of work you put into this is amazing. Thank you very much.
Well, my pleasure, and thank you for attending this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ergun.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.